Hey, welcome back to the Gamestorm podcast. This week we are joined with
Alexander Gabriel
and
Jason Pease.
and as always,
Dan Horgan.
and I'm Tom Denby. So we're gonna get right into it here. So we were just talking before we started. Alex, you top aided the Nerd Rage event that just happened. So you want to tell us about that?
Yeah, I played Selesnya tokens for the event, which I think was a very good metagame choice based off of what happened after the Pro Tour. A lot of people seeing the Mono Blue Tempo deck do so well, as well as Esper Control. Or a lot of people built decks to metagame to beat those decks, and most of the time they were not prepared for what I was doing, which essentially was just like it's essentially like white weenie, but much more. You go much wider and you're much more explosive.
So what's the green for?
So the green, there's actually a lot of green cards in the deck. You play Separately Migration as well as Tristani and March on the Multitudes. You play a decent amount of green cards. Essentially, the deck is it's a full-on tokens deck. You just play your ideal play is like play a Legion's Landing turn one. Play some kind of drop, preferably a Separately Migration. That way you could actually just flip the Legion's Landing on turn 3.
Right.
And even if you don't do that, you have so many incarnations of like, 1 drop into 2 drop into play a Convoke spell or play a History Benalia and then play a Convoke spell. Again, the deck a lot of the time, I jokingly refer to as you were charging up the Spirit Bomb. Frequently, you would make the first 3 plays of the game, you would just not attack. You would not want to trade off your board because your board is better than their board on average because you have all these Convoke cards. So you just want to like build up the board and then set up a spot where you have a bunch of guys to play and then play an Anthem and then kill them.
Okay, makes sense. Just Selesnya token stuff. So you took second in the Swiss, and then you said you had to go to work.
Yeah, I had to work that night. Unfortunately, so I knew I wasn't going to play top 8. So top 8 agreed to split, so I was happy for that reason. So I got to go. I was second in the Swiss. I think I think Wyatt Darby was first in the Swiss. Actually, no, Wyatt Darby I believe was first in the Swiss. He only had the Pro Tour champion from Dominaria.
Yeah.
He only had one. He had a draw and 6 wins or 7 wins. It was 8 rounds. And overall the tournament felt really good for me. My first matchup would have been against the Gruul aggro, which I had beaten in the Swiss, and I think was a very good matchup for me. So I was a little sad that I couldn't play it out for that reason. But at the same time, I had to work. And honestly, I don't care that much about Pro Tour aspirations or playing in these NRG things. Like I call myself a hardcore casual. I like to play Magic, I like to play it well, but I don't have a high aspiration for my career.
Yeah, I hear you, man. So congratulations there.
Appreciate it.
Now we're gonna get on to our main topic today, which was the Mythic Championship that just happened. Mono Blue Tempo, the greatest and most cool deck in the entire standard format, taking it down. So let's hear from Jay on this one. How do you feel about Mono Blue winning the Mythic Championship?
I think it's terrible. I hate Mono Blue, dude. But
I know.
It is a really good deck, and in this meta, it has a lot of answers, especially Spell Pierce against Esper Control.
We were just talking about this exact topic earlier. In a format where Mono Blue's Spell Pierces are good, that deck is going to excel. And Spell Pierce is a card that's really good right now, so...
I agree.
I think a bigger thing, honestly, Guild of Ravnica initially didn't look like it, but gave this deck really great additions. Terramander is probably the second best threat in the deck now.
Yeah, Terramander's a house.
It allows them to go over the top way more than they used to. Like again, it's a card you can play on turn 1 to put an accession on, but also on turn 5, it's like another Jhin.
Right.
And then even like Plasm Capture is just another. That's exactly what the deck wants to be doing. Putting pressure on the board as well as interacting with the opponent. I think that the subtle upgrades to that deck, I very much underestimated. I always kind of made fun of that deck in the last season of Standard, and now I look at it and it's like the additions to that deck have made it deck much more powerful.
So, what beats Mono Blue then? So what is the deck to take down the Mono Blue Menace? Generally speaking, if you want to go into a field, what is the best deck to take in there if you think Mono Blue is going to be the #1 deck to beat?
I think Gruul's really good against it.
Gruul? Probably just like big beats. Yeah.
Big beats, and then you have Shock and Lightning Strike to deal with them early.
Yeah, I've actually the Gruul deck started gaining popularity because of the immense popularity of Mono Blue. So I think that's the primary reason to play the Gruul deck, because I actually think the Gruul deck's kind of underpowered in a lot of other matchups.
Yeah.
So I think it is preying on blue. People say the Mono White deck is a good matchup, though that seems really close.
Yeah, the Mono White, I think they're pretty good against them if they win the dice roll.
I think that's 50-50.
And I will say, I think the Selesnya deck that I played was also a very good matchup for the Selesnya deck. I mean, the blue deck obviously has has its really good draws, but I think that the fact that you go so wide against them. Like when I played against Mono Blue 2 times in the Swiss of the Nerd Rage, and honestly, there's times where like I'm just attacking into their defensive Jin because I'm just going so wide against them, and I have lifelink. To the point where like I'm racing. I remember racing my opponent who had a Curious Obsession on the unblockable creature, as well as a Jin and other creatures on defense, and I'm just like swinging all my guys into them.
Jeez.
Because again, it came down to like between the lifelink is a big deal in that matchup too. Because again, like the fact that I can kind of play that like kind of just like that tempo game right back at them.
Right.
And they're forced to leave their creatures back.
Access.
Yeah. The matchups were close some of the time, but I do think it felt somewhat favorable for me, I would say.
I would guess so. You make a lot more dorks than they do, and like you said, you have lifelink.
Yeah.
The go wide strategies tend to do well against the tempo decks.
And then Tide Taker. That is the card. If you're playing a white based deck and want to beat the blue control deck, Tide Taker is the card you want. That card makes their deck basically not function a lot of the time.
Right. No, it essentially works as Thalia against them.
Yeah, it is essentially Thalia against them.
Yeah.
In fact, it's even better because he was Thalia for Trickster as well.
Yeah.
I think green-white would be a little bit better of a matchup, but mono-white isn't necessarily the best. I think it's 50-50. I know Reed Duke, before he went to the Pro Tour, when he was testing with Huey and Owen, Owen was playing mono blue, and Reed was like, he was playing Sultai, and he was like just winning every match. He's like, I think this is what I want to take. And then he sat down against mono blue. He's like, this is a really good matchup. Let's try mono white. That's supposed to be a really good matchup. It was 50-50, and then he did mono red, and it was still about like 60-40 or whatever. And he's like, well, I guess I'm just going to play mono blue then. And then he top 8 with it.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think mono blue is the only reason why you don't just, it's not just the Sultai slugfest in standard right now.
Yeah.
Because mono blue, I think, is just like the true enemy of that deck.
Right.
Mono blue shits on Sultai because all Sultai wants to do is tap out.
Yeah, exactly. And Sultai's also like, Sultai's not playing mana efficiently. A lot of the time they're just playing, you're playing stuff all the way up the curve, all the way up to 6 mana.
Right.
And like when you play anything past 2 or 3 mana against mono blue and they like counter it with a creature in play, you're just so far behind.
And it feels so bad.
Yeah.
The other thing I like about mono blue winning is that it's a cheaper deck, so it's easily accessible for like anyone who's like just getting into Magic or younger kids who don't have a lot of money to build decks. They're kind of always coming in with the jank decks that are like, here's a bunch of commons throw together. Well, mono blue's cheap and it's good, so they can.
That's why we're seeing so much of it.
Yes.
So much mono blue. Jay, what were you saying earlier? Last time you were here, there was like.
Out of the 28 players, I think we counted 12 mono blue.
Yeah.
I especially at the FNM level, that's going to be a large reason. I mean, between the fact that the people are going to play the Pro Tour winning deck no matter what, I think again it comes down to the deck's only like $80 I think in paper. Like that again, standard having an affordable top tier standard deck is great though. That's just a really big boom for Wizards and for the players.
Yeah.
Even though mono blue can be frustrating to play against sometimes.
Can be.
I mean, to be honest, they don't play well on defense. If you're able to get ahead of the mono blue deck, they usually just crumble and die.
Yeah, so there was
very true.
There was 4 mono blue in the top 8, right?
There was 3.
Yeah, 3. I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
There was 3. Can you look up the top 8 actually, Dan, while you get your phone out? Okay.
I don't have the deck names, but I have.
Well,
just
find the
top
deck
8.
names.
I'm working on it.
Go to MTG top 8.
Yeah, Sultai does make top 8, which.
So this isn't by record or anything, but this is by record going into the top 8.
Okay, this tells the deck names.
We got Julian. Name I don't want to try to pronounce because I'll butcher it. Mono Blue Tempo. You have Michael Bond on Simic Nexus. Autumn Burchett on Mono Blue Tempo.
The eventual winner.
Yes. Marcio
Carvalho.
Yeah.
Marcio,
Carvalho.
not Marcio.
Okay.
Marcio Carvalho.
Azorius
Yes.
Aggro. Reed Duke on Mono Blue. Yoshihiko Ikawa.
Yoshihiko Ikawa.
On Esper Control, and Alex Majlatan on Gruul Aggro. Dude, I'm terrible with names. Oh, and Louis Scott LSV
on Illy Drake's last season standard.
Yeah, right. He's like, crap, I didn't have a deck for this Pro Tour.
Yeah.
Oh wait, I still got that last deck sleeved up.
Yeah.
Honestly, I was pulling for him to win.
I was too. I'm a big fan of LSV.
I too.
I mean, I will feel like LSV. He's a very, he's a positive member of the community.
He's got a great personality.
Yeah, exactly. He understands to play up the camera. That's definitely.
Well, and he keeps top 8ing over and over. He's got. Does he have the most top 8s?
He does not. He actually is behind Paulo Vito Domino Rosa and John Finkel.
I was gonna say it's probably Finkel, right?
Yeah, and Paulo has more than him as well.
Really?
That was actually. I remember when Paulo he won the Pro Tour Hour Devastation. And, and LSV in the booth was actually kind of talking about how he was starting to feel like he was getting eclipsed, and that was the first time he really mentioned on coverage that he kind of hinted that he was going to go back.
Yeah.
Because he was after that was like Paulo's 12th top 8.
Uh-huh.
And at that point, LSV LSV, he's very much he wants to be the best player.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that to him seeing Paulo start to get so much further ahead of him, it kind of drove him to coming back. I think.
Yeah.
I mean-
well, and ever since he's come back, he's had crazy success at the Pro Tour.
I think he's
level.
trying really hard, to be honest. You can tell.
No
Yeah.
kidding, man. He
Yeah.
like in the last calendar year, how many Pro Tour top 8s? At least 3, right?
Yeah,
in his
done-
last 8, he's done 5.
Yes.
Holy shit!
Because he took the year off, obviously, and then he topped
5 out of 8.
Yeah.
Dude's a beast.
That's insane.
Yeah.
That
or
is
you could
a
be this guy. Who's
62%.
that? Kai Bud.
Kai Buddha.
Kai Buddha.
Kai?
He has
7 wins.
Yeah.
In 10 top 8s.
Well, here's the thing
That's
about
the
Kai.
most wins.
He was the best player back when nobody was good.
Yeah.
Back
Yeah.
before, back in the Dark Ages of Magic, he was like the king of Magic because he was like the biggest. There was the shiniest turd in the pile, basically.
Yeah.
You know
Well,
what I mean?
people still revere Kai Buddha's ability to play the game, but though
Oh, hell
it
yeah.
is obviously a little bit like it's not quite the same standard as it is today.
It's like, for example, I'm going to use basketball. I was just talking about this with my coworkers. Back in the day of like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, he was like the greatest player who ever lived at that point. But he, like by today's standards, he would be, he'd be good, but he would not put up the numbers because today's game is so
Yeah.
much stronger than it was. And it's the same principle for Magic. Back in the 90s, Magic's game, there were nowhere near as many players. There were nowhere near as many players who'd been playing for years and years and years and become that good because it just hadn't been around long enough.
Yeah.
At this point, nobody can be that guy because there's just too much. The only guy we have right now that's even close to that is LSV.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's players there's newer players like Owen Turtenwald's put up a ton of really good results.
Yep.
I mean, recently.
Yeah.
What Magic's a kind of like a what have you done for me recently game.
No, definitely.
You know what I mean? In LSV, in the past 3 years, he's just been the most successful, I think.
Well, I mean, he also went through a bit of a dry spell himself. To be fair, before
Oh,
that,
yeah.
he had mentioned it. He had mentioned before.
Well, and that's how players are. They'll go through like really hot tears. Like you were just saying, Owen Turtenwald.
Yeah.
There was a time a couple of years ago when he just couldn't be beat. If you watched Owen Turtenwald sit down, it was like, shit, this guy's just about to dominate the whole field.
Yeah, so since I've been playing, the 3 players that I've noticed have made a lot of top 8 since I've been playing is, so you had Jacob Wilson where he was just like unbeatable almost. I mean, obviously he didn't win. He got second in like consecutive Pro Tours or whatever, and that was just devastating to him because he was super close to being the youngest person to ever win the Pro Tour.
Yeah, he was I think he was 19.
He was 20 because 21 is the youngest.
Okay.
So he had 2 Pro Tours where he top 8'd, and if he won, he became the youngest, and didn't. Both times.
The only thing he won was what, an invitational, right?
He won Invitational,
yeah. But with the Pro Tour, he consecutively, top 8'd. One time he got second place, and it was like a game 5 too. There's Shota Yasuoka, who's gotten second place and has won.
That was one of the funnest Pro Tour finals too.
Yeah,
which one?
Ooh.
Shota, it was Grixis Control versus.
Shota versus Carlos Serval.
Yeah, against Jessica, right?
Yeah, I remember
that.
that.
Was fun.
Yes.
That was a crazy final.
I love that one because that Shota was not prepared to play that deck.
Nope, and he got
because he did not bring his Guru lands.
He
had his blue and his black Guru lands, but did not have his red ones.
He also had said he'd actually built the deck the day before the Pro Tour.
Yes.
He didn't know what he was going to play, so he literally threw a pile of cards together. Which I've done that before too, and I've actually had success sometimes at local events doing that kind of thing. But it's to hear that at the Pro Tour to be like the day before, I'm going to throw these cards together. And I remember at the end of the Pro Tour when they interviewed him and they asked like, "What kind of advice do you want to give to people that want to play your deck?" And he just says, "Don't."
Yes, and that is fair because I think every control deck that Shota has ever played, minus the Dragons deck, but that's because that was already made prior.
Yeah.
He just brought that with him. Any deck that he builds and is not made prior, no one should play other than him.
Well, because he
he's the
builds
master of
decks.
control.
Well, he builds decks for events.
Yes.
Like he's not only is he the best control player, just generally speaking. He is the best at scouting for an event and coming with the best configuration of control cards.
Yeah.
Like when he won the World Championship, did he win or was he second place that year?
I don't think he won.
I think he brought that weird Tamer. Fucking Eternal Witness deck. Do you remember what I'm talking about?
Oh,
I remember the deck tech on it.
Yeah, it was that really crazy
Ether
deck.
Vial, Eternal Witness, Snapcaster Mage, Crypto Command.
And that deck was hot garbage. But for that specific event, it was great.
Yeah.
And Shota, before the team series came together, was actually he didn't play with people. He just played on Magic Online by himself. So he's like, and as a control player, so he would just basically memorize these entire metagames and learn like what the best cards are to play all on his own. So, and the thing is, unlike a lot of people have teams and teammates that give them advice and they figure stuff out. But Shota, it's all committed to his own memory,
right?
Which allows him to build these control decks and play them at a higher level than most people.
Correct.
Yeah.
I'm a big Shota fan. There's another really high-level control player, Greg Orange.
Yeah, Gregory Orange. They won the 25th anniversary Team Hot Sauce.
Yep, he is my hero. He is strictly a blue-white control player.
He's
Love that
he's
stuff.
a pretty local player, actually. You see him. I've seen him at Pastimes a lot. I've seen him at Nerd Rage on a number of occasions. This Pro Tour was really their big break. Those players were all very much known as like Midwest grinders, and like that was like really their big break on the Pro Tour right there.
Right.
And winning that Pro Tour in particular has got to feel really good because that's like the greatest hits essentially. All the good players were at that Pro Tour.
Yeah, they were.
My favorite deck of his that I saw him play was Blue-Green Crush. I'm sorry, that deck was just really cool.
The Tentacle Crush deck,
Crush,
yeah.
Oh yeah.
Crush the
He was
Tentacles.
awesome with that deck.
That deck was sweet.
Yeah. Crush the Tentacles. That was a
Protector
card.
one?
Yeah, Den Protector,
The one
get
that,
back your tentacles.
Yeah.
When did he play that?
He played that for a long time during BFZ Standard.
Yeah.
He was really good with
He
that
was
deck.
the innovator of that one.
Yeah, turns out Crush the Tentacles and Den Protector is a combo, you see, because you get to pick up your
I
Den
know.
Protector.
I played the deck.
Yes, that's
but
great.
I played it after Corey Dissinger top 8'd an open with it.
Okay.
Actually, like, I'm friends with Corey.
Nice.
And so, like, he sent me his list, and he's like, here's the changes I made after that, because I obviously didn't win. And he's like, but, no, I'm still in contact with him, and, like, he likes to brew. He's, like, one of those type of people, and he's like, yeah, I brewed this deck. It's a little different than the other one, but I think it's a little bit better.
To add to a little bit what you're saying, I think, honestly, a lot of the time, decks that win tournaments are frequently not the list you should be playing in the next event because the metagame's always changing.
Right.
And even if maybe the 70, maybe the 60 is correct in the main deck, but the 75 is usually not correct.
Absolutely
Just copy and
not.
paste 75. I mean, I've done it because I'm lazy, but I think that that's typically incorrect. I think you should be metagaming to what you think people are going to be, responding to that tournament versus like I'm going to just copy and paste the list.
Right.
It's always good to take the top 8 deck lists and use them as like your jumping point.
Yeah.
Right.
Especially with things like control decks. Like what I'm playing right now, Esper. I'm playing Michael Hamilton's 10-0 list. I'm playing like 71, I believe, exactly out of his 75. There's a few things that I just didn't like about it, and I refuse to do the exact same 75 because this meta is different than the Pro Tour meta.
No, I agree.
So,
I think it's very different, honestly. Even though obviously they're still the top tier decks. I think that like there's a lot of decks that are creeping up in response to the top tier decks now.
Right.
And it's always good to like if you can or if you know the player who did top 8, talk to them after they're done because they'll tell you like, well, here's what's going to happen. Like here's what I think should be changed in the deck, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like
exactly.
That's going to help a lot if you don't really know because like you haven't played the deck, so you obviously don't know what it needs. Yeah. So if you're able to talk to that person, do it. Like it's the best way to change a deck.
Yeah.
Is Michael Hamilton the guy that you played against?
No, you're talking about Alexander Hamilton.
No, the guy you played against when you went to the Open with Jimmy. He won with 4-color control. Is that who that was? Pretty sure it was.
Is it?
I think so. The name is ringing a bell.
It's the same name, but I don't know if it's the same player.
Okay.
Because if it is, I'm sorry, that guy is a very bad player.
That deck was really bad.
He luck-sacked his way through every win
Well,
in
then
that open.
if it's the same guy, then he also 10-0'd the Mythic Championship. So clearly,
I don't think it's the same guy.
I was gonna say at that point, it's not luck.
Right.
Like you can't tell me if it's the same guy. He can't luck sack 10-0 twice.
Yeah, you're not. Yeah, exactly. There comes a point.
I don't think it's the same guy because every single time I see, because I've seen him at several GPs afterwards, and every single time I see him, he's at like the 04 tables.
Okay.
So,
well, like.
I don't know. Like
Michael
he could have
Hamilton
looked at accepted way.
is a name that just sounds like an NPC. You know what I mean? Michael Hamilton.jpg.
Right.
Yeah.
We apologize to the Michael Hamiltons out there.
Yeah. No.
I don't.
Yeah. No. So when I played
Blocked,
him,
yeah.
when I played him in the Open, we were both 3-0, and so we played game 1 for 42 minutes.
Oh no.
Jesus.
And he had 8 cards left in his library, but he was playing like a few games down from me prior, and he had cast Bolas game 1.
Him.
It is?
It's him.
Oh, God.
That's him, dude.
He's not bad, clearly.
Oh. Anyway,
And just to put that, this is the tournament too. 4-color control, 12-2-1.
it's the same guy?
Same guy.
Oh,
And then he
God.
10-0'd with this deck.
Oh, how?
Yeah, from
anyway,
Brownsburg, Indiana.
So, his deck was like a bunch of 1-ofs. Like, the only card he played more than 1-of was Glimmer of Genius. He played a 4-of. Everything else was a 1-of or a 2-of. Everything.
That sounds like a lot of control decks, though.
Correct.
Yeah, right.
So he ended up getting a Jace emblem on me.
Sure.
He ended up getting a Dovin Bond emblem on me. But I had an Avacyn on the battlefield, but he was at a huge life total. He had 8 cards left in his library. One of them was a Nicol Bolas. And I'm like, I'm going to scoop here because if I lose to that, I lose in 1. But I think because his deck is so slow, I could just board into an aggro deck and win.
No, I
game 2.
Yeah, tactical concessions are something that's very
Right.
important in competitive Magic.
So yeah, we go. So I scoop, and we go to game 2, and I'm boarding into this aggro clan. I boarded into Campbell's. I was playing black white. It's great. Started out real great, and I was like, all I have to do is untap, and then I pass turn, and I'm able to play this Avacyn. He plays turn 5 Glorybringer, turn 6 Glorybringer, turn 7 Glorybringer, turn 8 Glorybringer, and I'm like, what?
There's a very strong curve.
Yeah, no doubt.
So I'm sitting there going, how do I beat that? Because now if I flash in my Avacyn, I can block one and save a creature, but it's going to do nothing for me.
Yeah, you can't race it.
Exactly. So I was just like, well, I guess I'm going to just concede because I'm going to go out and stress smoke because that was rough. Game 1 took way too long, and I was just like, I don't know what this guy's doing because he was just taking forever on his turns.
So yeah, that's always awkward, especially when your opponent's playing a control deck and you think they're taking a long time. It's really hard to decide what you should call a judge.
Yeah.
And then obviously that creates tension in the match because the player feels like you're insulting them. But honestly, for me personally, whenever that happens, I try to just play faster to kind of make up for the fact that my opponent's playing slow.
Right, I do the same thing.
Which again, sometimes it's not enough, obviously. But I was going to comment earlier when you guys were talking about how you don't feel like you don't think he was very good.
Correct.
I've noticed this with Magic players. Sometimes they're just not familiar with certain matchups. I've noticed there's players who I think initially I don't play very well against me, and then I see them play against other matchups and they do fine. And I think a lot of it is some players are just not as comfortable in certain roles and compared to others. Like a control player, for example, maybe isn't as good as playing an aggressive strategy or turning the corner as much as they should. Or a mid-range player maybe isn't as good as playing a control deck when they need to. I think a lot of the time when people Magic players, they don't necessarily all have the same skill sets. There's times where I find myself when I'm playing, I'm not aggressive enough at times, even when I should be. And I there's times where I am, but again, a lot of the time it's just difficult. And I think there's times where I played against people where I could have been more aggressive, and they looked at me and they're like, "What is wrong with you? You could have probably killed me." And in other matchups, I'm more comfortable with, I play better. So I think it's hard to judge how someone plays just based off of 1 or 2 interactions with them.
Right.
Especially if they're performing at a high level. I think that clearly there's some matchups they play much better in than others.
Yeah. So it wasn't. I didn't base this decision solely off the game that I played with him.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, this guy doesn't really seem like he is all there.
Yes.
It's not necessarily his play style. It was his mental capacity, and I'm not knocking him for anything. It's just, he might be. Who knows, right?
Some people are just extra stressed out when they play
Correct.
Magic, and you know what they're doing, but sometimes they just they gotta get in their own head.
And it could have been that as well, but I based the decision not solely off of my match with him, but the other match, because I was near him that whole day, and also watching him in the top 8. Every single one of his matches, it just seemed like he top decked every answer he needed to, and I'm like, how is he doing this with all 1-ofs, right? It's like, oh, he has to draw Dovin Bond this turn. He has 1 in the deck, draws it, right? So, and then every single match, it just seemed like he just didn't really know what to do. And then, sure, he could have been nervous. Well, there's tons of reasons it could have happened. But from that those interactions with him, I just felt like he wasn't the best player. Obviously, could be wrong. Lots of different things there, right?
Yeah, I think that, and I think also people don't think about it. There's the human element. There's days where we play Magic where we perform better than others.
Yeah.
And it's weird because again, sometimes I've had days where I played horribly in front of people, and it's the first time I've ever played them, and they're probably just thinking who is this guy? This guy's awful. And then other people around oh yeah, they say, oh, Alex plays relatively well or whatever, and they look at it well, he played terrible against me.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of it too. I think that we all have some days are better than others, and we typically you a lot of time you'll judge someone on their worst moments instead of
Yeah.
judging them on their consistency.
Like I said, it's not a knock on him personally. I just felt like I did not expect him to be the same player there because based off of my judgment of him from that one tournament, and I've obviously seen him in other tournaments at GPs, other Opens, and he was never doing very well. He was kind of in the same boat I was, where it's like I'm already X3, and I'm just playing the day because I want my Planeswalker points. And every single time I saw him, he was in the same position. So I'm like, well, we're probably about the same type of player, right?
Right.
Well, it really depends, honestly, because again, there's a lot of variables in winning a Magic tournament or doing well in a Magic tournament as well. It's like, again, like there's times where you play very well in a tournament and you have a mediocre finish, and there's times where you play mediocre in a tournament and you have a very good finish.
Yeah.
Like honestly, even at the Nerd Rage, again, not to go back to that, it's like I don't think I played particularly well. I mean, I actually think I made a couple of errors. I think I made like about equal amount of errors and good plays, to be honest. But I end up top 8 in the event because things worked out. I had good draws. I didn't mulligan a lot. I had good curves.
Yeah.
And I think it's a big part of it. People like the variance in Magic. There's a lot more than people give it credit for.
Yeah, I think this is actually a really good segue to get into our next topic of bad-mannered playing.
Oh boy, my favorite.
So, for those of you who don't know, last Friday, which was the 1st of March, someone on our stream played in a particularly ill-mannered way.
So I'm just gonna go ahead and take care of this for him. I'm gonna be very blunt about
He's
this.
gonna be blunt. I'm trying not to.
Right,
So,
no,
yeah.
there's honestly, I would normally
blunt.
with this.
Be blunt.
Let me preface it, okay? And normally, Dan would be doing the right thing. We want to kind of be sensitive about these type of things, but this was pretty egregious, honestly, what happened here. And I don't mean to like sound like a dick and over dramatic, but it happened twice in the same night on stream. One of our local players like BM'd their opponent for about 20 minutes and then 30 minutes respectively, 2 different times on camera while they were playing a deck that just recently got banned, Simic Nexus of Fate.
In
So
best of one, yeah.
that's going to be our next topic of conversation. Is poor sportsmanship in Magic and just basically being a shithead.
Yeah.
We actually have the victim of one of these atrocities in the studio here with us, Brian. What's up, buddy?
How's it going, guys?
So
Doing good.
we're talking about what we're not going to say his name, but your opponent on camera last week, how he made you sit there while he comboed for no reason for 20 minutes, and was very BM about it.
The reason that I didn't scoop, obviously I knew it was...
You had an out in your hand, didn't you?
I had cast down in my hand.
Marty
If he-
did too.
Yeah, if he
Yeah.
didn't have Sinister Sabotage with the Crassus, then he would have had to scoop. He would have had to give up. So there was no reason for me to scoop until he showed me both.
Right.
And it just took him forever to get both cards.
Well, we were watching it, man. He didn't need to be doing what he was doing.
Yeah.
That's the thing. He
Part
was.
of it is that if you're trying to search for Crassus, you can't use Escanta.
Correct.
Because you're never going to find Crassus there, or if you do find it, you're bottoming it.
Right.
Every single time. And that's what he was doing. Which that's just a play mistake.
Well,
obviously.
what happened was, he kept seeing that he was going through the Crassus, and, like, you could see him like, fuck, there's the Crassus. Well, I better just search again. It happened, like, 3 different times. There's a pattern there. That's the point, is it didn't happen just the one time.
Yeah.
You know, it happened several times. He went through those Crasuses plenty of times. You know, he's not stupid. He took first place with the deck on the night, so he clearly knows how to pilot it.
Once he's comboed off enough, there's a level where he should know the order of his cards. So the expectation is that if you're playing a combo deck like that and you've searched enough, he should be able to know the order of what's face down.
You should know that you should just be drawing cards.
I will remind you, we are playing at the F&M level, where I think a lot of F&M players will not be. They're not familiar with organizing the bottom of their deck with this content. I think that is a skill that is more advanced than the most.
No, you're
F&M
correct
player.
about that, and I'm leaning more toward. My problem is he had like a whole bunch of chemisters insights that he was like looking at in his yard and stuff, and he just wouldn't do it. You know, he was, to me, the first time it happened wasn't egregious is when he did it to Marty, because when he did it to Marty, it was very blatant, and it took almost half an hour for one game.
He got to the point where he had 7 extra turns on the stack, 4 Nexus left in his deck, that's it. And what he was doing was spinning search, revealing that, look at this, I only have 4 Nexus left in my deck. Let me take one, and then go spin search again. Look at this, and it's just like, okay.
I think it's common decency that if you know how to operate that deck,
you show your opponent.
Well, there was a point where he was at 16 cards in his library, and he was searching 2 or 3 times a turn. So at that point, you should be able to plan that out so you draw that Crassus, if that's what he was waiting for.
Yeah.
No, I didn't know. The only thing I could see was what he was missing with search. And if he was net decking, that deck plays 2 Crassus, and that's
He did play 2 Crassus, and that's why Marty didn't scoop, because he was in literally the exact same situation you were.
gotta play your outs, why
well,
not?
he had a cast out.
Cast down in hand.
Yeah, cast out in hand, the same thing that you did, but he did it like 10 minutes longer to him than he did it to you.
Right.
I think that deck is, just to switch gears a little bit, I think that deck is mildly oppressive, and really, if you think about Wizards and the reason they banned cards recently like Emrakul and stuff like that, it takes the fun away from the other player. It was miserable sitting through that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
At least it's faster on Arena. For him, he asked me afterwards, he's like, how was my play speed? And I said, not great, man. You take too much time
Shuffling.
organizing your lands. Like,
Dude, I
there's
called
no
him on the
reason
land organized thing a
you
bunch
should
of
touch your
times.
lands that much. Shuffling sucks. That's just the nature of the beast. Like, he was actually a decent shuffler, but it's still not as fast as Arena. It's still not as fast as Moto. So it was, it's oppressive. It's annoying.
Well, and then couple that with the fact that he was in full I'm going to troll my opponent mode, and I'm going to make this last as long as possible so I can masturbate all night. You know what I mean? And that's really what it comes down to is you're jerking off.
Right, so there gets to a point, like I played a Nexus deck.
Yeah.
Right, and I've played it on stream like twice, and one time it was me versus Brian, who was also on a Nexus deck. Our games in total took 30 minutes to play 3 games. Because what we would do is we would sit there and go, hey, if you don't have a counter, you're tapped out, here's expansion explosion, plus another wilderness reclamation.
Well, it's easy.
Do
You
the math.
two are-
Yeah.
You
Right.
2 are
So-
dicks,
so-
and your
but-
level of play is way higher than Zach Kids.
Point being
Apologize, guys.
that there
Cat's out of the bag.
point being that there is a point where you should be able to show your opponent, realize that you only had 2 mana, like Bryant only had 2 mana up, right? So the possibilities there are what? Cast down, trophy, essence scatter, or something like that. You weren't playing black, but
I was playing black.
Not black. You weren't playing blue.
I was on Grixis.
He's on
Right.
Grixis, yeah.
You were?
Grixis discard.
Yes, sorry.
Hold on,
Yes.
15 main board discard spells, and I still get
Correct.
crushed by
So
Grixis.
anyway,
Yeah.
You should know
Get
Brian
fucked.
by now.
Yeah.
He's always on
Yes.
something with black.
sorry. I knew it was
Accurate
black.
statement.
I knew
a lot of
black.
blue lately. For some reason.
I was mixed up
Ever
in
since the
blue.
Scarab guy.
So there's only a few outs with 2 mana up, correct?
Yeah.
There's a counter spell and there's 2 destroy spells. You should realize as a Nexus player that he has a few outs and I have the answer to all of those. Let me show him, here's Crassus, here's counter spell.
Yeah.
I win, correct?
Did he ever have that in his hand?
He did.
Yep. I will comment that playing discard spells versus a deck that draws a bunch of cards is usually actually bad for the discard spell matchup, to be honest. So
Totally
That's
agree.
true.
I'm on,
It still feels bad though.
Oh, no, it
feels
does.
like you should be getting a lot of
no,
value.
I agree, but unfortunately, Chemist's Insight is just good against duress. But
His insight's still a good card.
But I will say again with this whole Nexus thing. I think honestly, and not to underplay what he did in the matchup. I think he definitely did not kill his opponent as quickly as he should have. But I think a lot of the problem is just Nexus. Nexus is just a terribly designed card, especially in tangent with Wilderness Reclamation. It's similar to KCI in Modern, where like your opponent's not deterministic to win, so you have to. A lot of time, if you're trying to get the maximum percentage of winning, you need to sit there and watch them for 20 minutes. But it's just miserable, and honestly, it's terrible for coverage. It's terrible to play against. It just creates this animosity towards your opponent more so than just losing a game, because you feel like not only you lose the game, you wasted your time.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing. I don't think Nexus is the problem. I think it's Wilderness Reclamation.
Yeah, I don't
to
know
be
why they
honest.
printed that card. That's just
That card's ridiculous.
Prior to Wilderness Reclamation,
I love that
we
card.
never had a problem with Nexus. Some decks played it just so they couldn't get milled out. They couldn't deck
Yeah.
themselves, right? Like they were just like, oh, like I have 8 cards in hand. Let me discard
think
Nexus. So I
the shuffle clause off of going to the graveyard from anywhere. I think it's a little absurd. Like I think it should shuffle on resolution if you're going to make that kind of effect. Like the whole
Agreed.
and again it
It
creates.
shouldn't be a replacement effect.
Especially with like cards like Teferi, Hero of Dominaria, there's issues in Standard of people, someone Ultimates Teferi in the blue icon deck, they have no win conditions, and their opponent has Nexus of Fate in their deck, so they keep 7 cards and they're just discarding Nexus of Fate every turn, and that's a board state that I've heard about happening multiple times in the previous Standard format.
The problem with Wilderness is it enables every single card that has an Accidents ability that's instant.
Yeah.
And it enables any card that has a colon in it. So like, you know, we haven't seen it yet, but things like Biogenic Ooze,
Yeah.
Slime Foot, that type of bullshit that you can just do over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Especially in multiples. Like, they have to be really careful what they print the next few sets. This card's going to be around for a while.
Yeah.
It's very easy to print something like a Felidar Guardian combo, you know.
Right.
Tell
Something
me
that just
you'd
goes
rather
nuts
play
with
against
it.
like Teamer Reclamation than play against Simic Nexus bullshit.
I'd rather just not play.
against
I'd rather not
Reclamation.
play
Right.
against
Yeah.
Wilderness Reclamation, because if you look at every deck in the format right now, minus like Mono Blue, everyone's playing mainboard Enchantment Hate for one card.
Mono Blue is a big reason I think why the Reclamation decks aren't taking over the format.
Correct.
Because the matchup for Mono Blue is just bad in any Reclamation deck. So
Yeah. Well, guys, I think that's it.
Yeah.
Moral is don't be a dick. You know who you are.
Again, I would like to clarify. I think that I do not. I think that he was definitely, spinning the basketball on his finger a bit in the matchup. But again, the problem is a lot of people at the FNM level don't necessarily know the common courtesies they should.
Well, here, let me correct you here about this. I talked to, well, now we've said it. I talked to Zach on Facebook this week.
Sorry, guys.
And he was like, well, Marty and I are friends, and I kind of wanted to show off, essentially, in so many words. You know what I mean?
Spin the basketball.
So that's really, it was unacceptable. Guys, just got to be more mature about it. You know,
Yeah.
we're all here to have a good time, and we don't want to be toxic and ruin each other's experience.
Right, and
Absolutely.
part of this, talking about this now and saying, so if you want to go watch those videos, just so you know, like, kind of common courtesy, so you can see what we're talking about. They're from March 1st, 2019, standard. There's a playlist on the channel here, and so if you want to watch those, and just so that way anyone can learn how to not play bad, like with bad manners.
What not to do.
What not to do. Correct.
Zach really did give us a clinic on everything that you really just should not be doing as far as being a nice, considerate player.
Correct.
Yeah, because he would have ran into the wrong person playing that, and they would have called him out on it.
Right.
Right.
Not players here are like that.
I would have called the judge. I would have, if this was like a competitive REL or something, at least sitting across from him, I would have said, hey man, this is some bullshit. Like, just beat me. Do something. Like, you're BMing me.
Right.
Like, you got to call that stuff out, and that's something that, as your opponent, you can do that. If your
Yeah.
opponent's doing something ignorant, don't let them get away with it.
Right. He was very fortunate to be playing against Bryant, who's super nice,
Bryant's a cool, chill dude.
and then he plays against his own friend
Yeah.
in the last round. So he
Like,
played against you, or he played against Dan, and
Yeah,
if
no,
Alexander was playing standard, I'm sure you guys would have called him out.
I have oddly enough a pretty different philosophy on this. I'm very much a concession player.
I would
If my
assume.
opponent is pretty deterministic, I would just concede because to me it's not worth my sanity.
So, like, if
That's
I
it.
was in the position of Bryant, I would have said, show me Counterspell plus Crassus, and I will concede.
Yes.
Right? So, but I wouldn't have been like, I'm just going to concede because you have this loop.
Well,
I
Zach
would have
wouldn't
said,
have showed it to him, though.
right,
That's
and
the
if,
thing.
if he
yeah.
did not show it to me, I would have been very ticked off about it.
Yeah.
Because at that point, I'd been like, you are maintaining a board state that is not progressing.
Right.
You are putting the same spell on the stack. I'm going to get the judge over here, right?
Right.
So if I said, show me these two, and I will concede, and then he proceeds to just continually cast Nexus, I would have then been very ticked off.
And especially at the FNM level, you should definitely take consideration for your opponent. Like if they're willing, like I think obviously in more competitive REL, it's a little more complicated to show me the thing and I'll concede to you because there's a lot more going on. I think, but I think at FNM level, you should definitely more so than in a competitive take your opponent's enjoyment into consideration when it comes to when you're playing a deck like Nexus.
And that's the thing, is like, it's F&M.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just, you gotta just act your age, not your shoe size, as I like to tell people.
Agreed.
So, hey guys, thank you both so much for joining us. Alex, we've been trying to get you on here for a while, so
know.
thank God we finally got you here.
I didn't get to talk about
Thank you,
Anzan.
Jason. You kind of just impromptu, like, sure, I'll hang out. I kind of want to talk about this Nexus thing.